And yeah, finally we are live again. Once more time with the Soul Java channel. I'm here with a nice guy, a Java champion, Tommy committer, a guy who contributes also to Micro Profile, to Eclipse E4J. So he he's doing a lot of presentation around the world, and also is my close friend and colleague. Hello, Roberto. How's everything?
Hi, hello, Otavio. Yeah, everything's fine. Thank you so much. And what about you?
So I'm so fine.
Awesome.
So I'm glad to say a few here. Um, and so let's introduce yourself better than me. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So for starters, let me just say it's a pleasure to return here to SoJava. I've been here before, maybe like 2 years, 3 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but at that time I did that in Portuguese. So now I'm doing that in English. That's fine. Anyway, so thank you so much for having me here again. And if you don't mind, I'll start by sharing my screen and we go into my presentation and also do a little further on my introduction. Um,
Sure. Please go ahead.
okay, so let's share this. Okay, let me know. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so welcome to this session about JavaEE meets Java 8. You might be wondering why is Java 8 not Java 9, since Java 9 did arrive like shortly. In truth, I made this presentation like sometime before Java 9 came out. And I definitely have to update it for Java 9, but on the other hand, I do feel that the things that were introduction to Java 9, like, as you know, Project Jigsaw and modularity, are not very relevant to what I'm going to discuss here. So the most relevant parts were the things that were introduced on Java 8, like streams, lambdas, and datetime API. So those are the things that we're going to look over here. So that's why the session name still says Java 8, because that's where those APIs were introduced. But definitely, I'll have to update these to Java 9 and probably use a couple of the new APIs that were enhanced over here. Anyway, as Otavio said, I'm Roberto. I'm definitely a passionate developer about everything that happens in Java. I do have my own blog on radcortez.com. That hasn't is not very active during the last few months, but hopefully I'll be able to start writing into it again. I also have my YouTube channel. I usually sometimes publish some small videos about some Java tips. Other than that, I'm a speaker. I'm a jug leader here in the city where I live, which is Coimbra in Portugal. Also a Java champion and also a jug leader on the virtual jug community, especially on the book reading club. So if you want to read a couple of books and discuss them, definitely join the book reading club, and we're happy to do a couple of sessions about your favorite books. If you're wondering, we're actually looking about into a Java modularity book by Paul Sanders and Sanders Mark. Paul Baker, sorry, and Sanders Mark. Really interesting book about Java 9 and modularity. So moving forward and going deep into the presentation. So I only have a couple of slides here just to do a little bit of introduction. And mostly everything I'm going to show up is going to be coding and the IDE. So hopefully it's not going to be too boring. I know that we are on like a Hangout, so it's definitely harder to post any questions, but I'm guessing that my friend Octavio is monitoring the YouTube channel. So if you happen to have any questions, please post them as soon as you have them. I'll be happy to answer any question at any time. But of course, you're also welcome to do them at the end. So our agenda for today, I'm gonna have like a really small overview about Java SE and EE. Then definitely it's gonna be around code demos, around some of the most popular specs for JavaEE, and basically talking about JPI, JAX-RS, a little bit of WebSockets, timers, batch, and a couple of curious ideas that I have that can improve the APIs using some of those new features that we got on Java 8, like optional streams, computable futures, method references, and lambdas. So if we look into the SE and EE versions, we'll definitely see here that there's been mostly an alignment between the versions when they're coming up. So when we have Java SE 1.2, we have Java 2E 1.2 right after. Same happened when Java renamed to Java 2 to Java SE. So you have like Java 2 SE in 2006, and then actually there was like a big gap over here. Usually on the crowd, I will actually ask what happened over here, but basically that was when Oracle bought Sun. We had like these huge interval on releases. But then we had like Java SE 7 in 2011, then Java EE 7 in 2013. Right after we have Java SE 8 in 2014. And then we had like a huge gap over here. Basically Java SE 9 and Java EE 8 they were launched at the same time, and we had like a big gap here between a new version of Java EE and the last version of Java SE. Anyway, we see here that usually EE targets the previous Java SE version since it's the most stable one. So that means that E7 will target SE7, E6 will target SE6, and of course E8 will target SE8. So most people probably are using E7 since E8 is relatively new, and we didn't have that many new stuff on E8. So E7 is definitely not target to SE8, but that doesn't mean we cannot improve our E7 usage with some of the EC8 stuff. And I mean, even if you're using E8, some of the things I'm going to show you here are also valid, because all the EE requirements or all the specs that are out there, they have a lot of years of development. So it's quite hard to now come to these specs and change them to use the new APIs. So even if now we have a E8 that's targeting SE8, most of the specs didn't have time or didn't have enough effort to improve them and to change them, start using some of those SE8 new features. So at the moment, most of the major application servers already support SE8. So actually all of them support SE8 since it's already a release that's like 4 years old. So Glassfish, Wildfly, Tommy, WebLogic, WebSphere, all of those support SE8. Some of them already dropped support for SE7 completely. So that means that as the developers, we are free to use SE8 features without any issues. And of course, some of those servers are already supporting E8 as well. So that's not an issue over there. So as you probably know, SE8 gives us a lot of major features like lambdas, some very highly anticipated feature and something that people have been asking for some time. Streams, which also a very interesting API that allows you to simplify the way that you interact with not only collections, but especially with streams of data. And a new datetime API because there's not enough datetime APIs already into JavaEE. So where they have the date API, we have calendar, and now we have date and time API. So we hope that at the third time we got it right. I believe so. So hopefully we don't gonna have like a fourth API to handle date and times. And also introduces with JavaEE 8, especially because of the on the default method interfaces. Now we are able to have some collection enhancements, so some new methods that allow us to use streams and to improve our interaction with the collections. And a couple of other interesting small APIs, but they also very useful. String joiner, Computable Future, comparator, and this is not actually an API, but a new feature called Repeatable Annotations that we're going to have a look in the samples. So this is what I have to show you. So I have a couple of more slides I'm going to show at the end, but basically that was it. Now everything's going to be on the IDE. So all the samples that I'm going to show, they are on this GitHub repo. So Cortez /JavaEE 7-Java8. So you can follow from there, and if you happen to have any other thing, then definitely I'm pretty sure the people are watching is going to have other samples or any other ideas how to use some of the new Java 8 stuff with JavaEE. Please feel free to submit some pull requests with new stuff. I'll be happy to merge them into this repo. Okay, so I'm gonna quit slides for now. I'm gonna move to the IDE. Otavio, can you see this properly?
Right now I can see you.
Oh, you can see. Oh, you don't see the IDE. Let me. Sorry. I guess that I have to share again.
Oh yeah.
And what about now? Is that okay?
Yeah, you are
Okay.
using the IntelliJ.
Okay. Is black okay, or should I change to white?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Awesome. So okay, let's start looking some code and some of the features that we have over here. So I'm gonna start with a popular one, which is JPA. So let's look into some familiar stuff that you usually see every day with some of our JPA code. In here we have a traditional bean. We inject an entity manager so we can interact with our database. And usually we end up doing some find methods to find, for instance, in this case, a movie. So the usual case that you will do it is you have this entity called movie, which as you can see here is very simple, only has an ID and a name, and a couple of setters and getters, and a few constructors, so no big deal. It's an entity. And here on movie bean, if you want to find that entity, I usually just go to the entity manager. I mean, it's the code that's over there. But I'll do like a find, and I pass in the movie class entity, and then I pass in the ID. So this will give me a movie entity by the ID. But sometimes, so sorry. But actually, find can if you, I'm not exactly sure if you can see that in the. Let me download here the source for this. Okay, just source is not found. Great. But I was going to show the Java doc. No worries. But basically, find can return a null. So that means that this find movie can return a null, and basically, if you call this from something else, then you have to go and check for nulls. Now with an optional, you can actually wrap in the find return value into an optional. Instead of returning a movie, you just return an optional movie. So then you know that whatever comes in there might be there or not, and then you just check in the optional if the value is over there. So for people that don't really know what an optional is, and I believe that maybe most of us already know, but I already find a couple of people don't know about that yet. Optional is an API that allows you to wrap a value that may be null or not, and then optional gives you a couple of methods to then unwrap the value and actually use it later. So you can call get, and it will return you the value. I'll return on you no such element exception if value is not there, but then you have a Boolean is present, or most interesting, the if present method that you can pass in an anomalous in a class, which actually is a functional, it can be a functional interface of consumer. So that means you can use a lambda over here. So then that means that you can actually pass in behaviors to use on the value if it's not null. So it's a very interesting API. I like it, and I use it a couple of times. And we're turning here to our find movie. So then I start writing my find methods like this. So this is like find movie enhanced. Basically, it wraps that into an optional. And we have here another situation where we have you can find a movie with an actual query. So instead of doing the entity manager find, we can do a create query, and we write the query then to find it by ID. And in this particular case, when the object is not there, we also get, instead of getting a null, we get a not result exception. But that you only get it when you call this method. So as an enhanced value, or an enhanced way, you can definitely do the same. So the query stays the same. But instead, you can wrap this into an optional, and you can try catch the result. And if you catch a no result exception, then you can return an optional empty instead, which means that, okay, you're returning an optional. It's valid for the return value of this method, but there's no value over there. So it means that you're not going to run into null pointer exceptions. And then you can combine a few things over here. So in here, so actually let me write this because it looks much better when I write it. So when you're interacting with something, or especially a database, you may also want to delete stuff. So you usually have to implement a delete method, which basically you have to go to entity manager, and you have to call remove. Remove takes a method, and sometimes you only have, or actually takes an object, and sometimes you only have the ID of the object you want to remove. So that means that you have to go to the entity manager. First, you have to find the entity that you want to remove, and then you can call entity manager.remove over there. But now, if you use those enhanced methods, you can do something more interesting, which is so you can combine what you're going to call, which is, let's see, we have the find movie enhanced over there. So we call find movie enhanced. We pass in the ID. So now we have, so let's extract this as a variable. So we have an optional for movie over here. And if you remember about what I told you about the if present, that actually allows you to pass in some behavior to apply if the value is over there. So we can actually do that with remove. So you can say movie enhance if the value is present. So I'm actually going to do this as an anonymous inner class first. So okay, if the value is present, this is going to be my movie. So I can go and say entity manager dot remove, and I say movie. Okay. Now, since this is just an anomalous in a class with just a single method or a single abstract method, I can write this as a lambda. So just going to use my ID to replace this as lambda. So will look like this. But we can do better. So we can definitely transform this into a method reference, because the argument that we are calling is, or the function that we're calling on the entity manager, the method we are calling on the entity manager, receives the same type of object that we're passing in on the Lambda. So basically, this can be replaced, and my IDE can also do that for me. So replace Lambda with a method reference, and we can definitely call entity manager double column remove. And we actually don't need this variable over here. So let's just inline it. And basically, this delete method could just look like this. So I'll call find move enhance, passing the ID. Then if present, I call entity manager dot remove. So those are a couple of tricks that you can do to improve the code that you write when you're interacting with entity manager and when you're exposing some methods to do that. So we can have a look. I have a couple of tests over here, so we can see, hopefully you can see this working and running. So I have this find test over here. So first I'm gonna find a movie by the ID using like the old approach. And then if I try to find an ID, it doesn't exist. So in here, actually, let me show you over here, I'm loading 3 movies, Star Wars, Terminator, and Rambo. So as you're probably guessing, those are some of my favorite movies. And here are my tests. So there is no movie for 5. So basically, it's going to give a null. So in here, when I do find movie and have a null, I have to like check for null, and if the movie is over there, I can put the name, and if it's not, I just say movie not found. But with an optional, I can do stuff like this, so I can just map it into a name and then call or else. So let's see if this actually gives some output. Okay. A little bit slow, but there you go. So now we have movie not found. Since I tried to find 5 over there, and movie not found, but using the enhanced way with optional. So basically, we're saying like you will have to write this code instead of writing this code, which is just a few lines less. I think they are more readable that way. Okay, so a couple of more feelings about JPA. I told you that we have the new date and time API. If you try to use the new date and time API objects on JPA, they won't work because they're not supported on the database level. So it doesn't. So the drivers and the JPA implementations. Well, now I think they are supporting it. Some of the implementations are already supporting it out of the box, but some of them they don't support them because they don't know how to serialize that into a column on the database. But that doesn't mean we cannot use them. So now in here I have a person which has like a birth date and a create date that's using a local date and a local date time. And this person is an entity, of course, JPA entity. And now I have like a person being over here, which just calls persist. To persist the person, then calls a find. And now if I actually want to persist the local date and the local date time, I can write a converter, which basically is one of the new features of JavaEE 7 as well for JPA, that allows you to tell how a particular structure or a particular object is going to be persisted on the database, and how it's going to be read from the database again to convert it to the original object. So you have to basically name the class whatever you want, and then you have to implement this interface over here called attribute converter. And then the attribute converter takes 2 types. The local date basically is the origin, and then a timestamp, which is the target object that JDBC driver knows how to persist, and basically JPA implementation knows how to persist. And this interface over here has like two methods. One says convert to database column, another one convert to entity attribute to implement those. And so if I want to implement those, basically now I have a local date over here. So I can convert this to a timestamp. Again, here, since I definitely can support nulls, I'm going to wrap this into an optional of nullable. And I'm going to only apply the conversion if there's actually a value over there. So I call map. So map allows me to pass in functions that's going to map that value into another. And I pass in, so I pick up my local date, and then I call timestamp value off, and I have to pick up. So since timestamp has a date that they have a time portion, I have to pick up a time portion to persist, and this time I'm going to pick at start of the day. So no big deal. And if there's nothing over there, I'll just return a null or else for optional. And then if I want to convert this again into an entity from the database, of course, now I have a timestamp. I have to convert it to a local date. Again, I don't know if what's coming from my database is null or not, so I can wrap this into an optional. And then to convert this to a local date is much easier, so I just call timestamp to local date time. So there is already a method that allows you to do that directly over here. So we call that as a method reference from timestamp. And but again, this is a local date time. So you're able to convert timestamp to local date time, not to local date. But hopefully, or luckily, local date time allows you to convert to local date. So now again, I map it again, and then I map local date time to local date, and I have my object back in to local date. And how do you plug this into the person object? So as you can see, there is nothing out of the ordinary over here. So the converter has here another annotation called converter auto apply. So you have to also use this annotation converter, but then auto apply is gonna apply this conversion to all the types that it found on the entities that are on the entity manager. So it's automatic. So it will definitely auto convert everything that's on person. Let's have local date and local date time. And I have the same converter to local date time. So it's pretty much the same. The only difference is that timestamp already has methods to convert to local date time directly. So just call value off over here, then to local date time over there, and that's it. So let me show you another example over here. Also, for you to see how interesting the local date timed API is. So in here, basically, I'm going to create a person with a birth date. And I'm pretty sure that most of us already have that issue where we have to calculate how old the person is based on his birth date. So that's actually super easy to do with a local date time. So in this particular case, I'm going to do like find a person. I already have local date, so passing in over there. And now I can say I can have the person get birth date, and the local date time gives me this method called until. And I can say now, so now it's just a variable that I have over here that gives me the local date time as it is now in my box. And then I say, what's the temporal unit, which I'm going to say years. So now basically this is going to calculate how many years until this time from the time that I pass in for the birth date. Now, if you're using the old API, which usually should be calendar, or maybe you should be using date, but date is mostly deprecated. So if you're using calendar, you basically have to set the date of your birth date, and you have to remember that months start at 0, they don't start at 1. So basically you pass in year, and then here is months. So this is not April, this is May. Then this is the day, and hour, and then you have to reset the hour. But if you try to print out this data, milliseconds are not resetted yet, so you have to reset them manually. So then you have to do a set millisecond equals 0. And finally, if you want to calculate how old is this person, then you have to go over and do this complicated math, like checking the year, checking the months, and checking the days to see if the year that we are already passes or not, and then calculate how old the person is. So basically, we're saying that all this code that you usually used before can be replaced by something like this. So like 10 or 15 lines of code that are super tricky to write to just a single line, which is definitely an improvement over the old ways that we have on Java to manipulate dates. Now, if I run this, let's do one over here. So now we should see how old the person is. So that person is 27 years old. That one is 27 years old. So the first print is from the using the datetime API, and the other one is using this complicated trick of code. And then I have just a print over here, so you can see that the milliseconds are actually over. They are not 0 when you set everything zeros over here, but not a millisecond. That basically you don't have a setter to set in. You have to do it manually. Okay, so this is for datetime API. Then finally, going to show a couple of more things more quickly about criteria. So JP also has this tricky way to do queries, so you can definitely do them writing the SQL yourself. But that's a pain, because especially when you have filtering, you have to start writing code like this. So I want to filter this vehicle. So also an entity over here, no big deal. And I want to filter this vehicle by its type. So, and of course, when you were doing UI, which filters, sometimes the filter is there, sometimes it's not. And definitely when that happens, we have to make different queries to say, if that is there, then add this filter, and if it's not there, don't add it. So you have to start doing tricks like this, like where 1 equals 1, and then start appending the filters that you want to apply. So in here, if the type is not null, I'll just append this type over here. So when you have more filters, then it starts being a mess. This improved a little bit if you use the criteria API, which definitely is not a friendly API, but at least it's programmatic. So create the criteria builder, you create some predicates, and then you can say query select the root. So root is the vehicle, where, and then you can pass in an array of predicates, and the array of predicates is over here. So just add builder equals root, get vehicle type equals to a type. But the enhanced way, I think it's more readable, at least. So I still have all these initialization blocks to create the builders and the queries and the root entity to apply the criteria API. But then you can do query select vehicle, where then you can pass in a stream of filters that you have over here. And then notice that instead of passing in the actual value, I can pass in an optional, or you can map it to an option. You can pass in the value, then map it to an option inside the method, which probably is better. There is some discussion about how optionals are evil in some cases. But anyway, then you can stream all of these into like here, and then you can say, okay, if the value is there, then I can map this into my builder and add the vehicle, and then create an array type with a predicate and then finally create a query and retrieve the results. So this is a little more scalable. So it allows you to just keep adding filters over here, or actually maybe passing a stream or a list of other filters, so you can just map them over here on the where clause or on the where API. So just one way to improve some things. I have a sample for this, but I mean, I'm not going to show because we're already a lot of time on JPA stuff. So the last thing is about repeatable annotations, which is a feature introduced on Java SE 8 that allows you to repeat annotations. So what I'm showing you is not supported at this time. So this is just an idea that we can definitely use to improve this a little bit. So since annotations were not repeatable, usually when you had to pass in multiple annotations, for instance, named queries, you usually have like an aggregator annotation, then you pass in an array of other annotations that actually have the metadata that we want. So definitely these can be replaced by just like a simple annotation that has everything, and then you can repeat it multiple times. So basically it's gonna make this a little bit simpler. Instead of using arrays, you can just pass in annotations a third way. But as I say, this is at this point, the JavaEE implementation does not support this, but you can definitely start supporting it by creating the right annotations to do these behaviors and start implementing those into the vendors. Okay, I'm done with JPA. So let's move to another spec. I'm going to talk a little bit about JaxRS right now, which is a very popular spec, and people usually enjoy that a bit. So let's see what we have over here. So in here we have a POJO, which is an address. I have like a street, city, postal code, country. So things that you find in an address type of object. And then over here, I have my REST endpoint, right? So I have here a method which is called findAddress, and I can pass in my URI info over here with a context annotation. So basically, this allows me to grab query parameters in a programmatic way. So the idea over here is when I call get, I can pass in multiple filters to my REST endpoint to search for addresses. And usually what you have to do when you have something like this is you have to grab what's coming in from the path or and then you have to check for nulls, and then you have to use them and find those on addresses. I mean, it will be something similar like this. So get street equals street different null, and if not different null, then I get the street. So it's a little bit of a pain. Now the enhanced way, which basically doesn't seem that improve that much at the code level. So we actually have less code over here. Here is a little bit more comprehensive, but I think it's more readable. So the trick over here is to map what you might get on the URI info as optionals again, since you don't know what you're going to get. And then you can use the optionals as filters and apply them directly into a stream. So in here, you iterate on the addresses, and then you try to search them by saying if the address equals, if the element of the address 1 equals the district or the city or the postal code or whatever, then return the address. So in here, we just call stream, and then stream allows us to call these. So this is some new methods that were introduced on Java SE 8, stream and filter. So stream allows you to pass in a predicate which is going to filter what's coming on the stream. So basically, I'm going to filter them on street, city, postal code, and country. And then I'm going to find the first element that applies all those filters. And if I don't find any, then I can just throw in an exception. So it does look as more code over here, but I think it's more scalable because let's just say that I have a new parameter over here. Let's just call it like I don't know, some we have a street, postal code, country. We can call it like street number 2 or something. Street and 2, and then in here I can just have like a new line and just map here the new parameter that I have. And here is a little bit more complex because you have like this chain of if, so you can definitely copy again, but it becomes more tricky to do all of this. So just like a small tip that you can use on JaxRS. Now, my favorite thing that I have on JaxRS is about using completable futures and async JaxRS. So I'm going to show a little bit that over here. So here we have a JaxRS endpoint, which is an async call. So let's just say that when you call the get method, this is a very expensive call. So if I want to have this as an async, I can use this annotation called suspend and pass in the async response over here. So, but how do we use this async response? So the async response is an API on JavaEE, JaxRS, that you can use to basically do async implementations, and then there is this method where it's called resume, where you pass in the object that you want to use, and then it'll say, okay, I'm done with my call, so resume the call, resume the execution, and return something to whoever called this REST endpoint. Now, the interesting thing over here is that you can combine these with Computable Future, which is something that was introduced on JavaEE 8, that allows you to basically chain together async implementations. So it's a very interesting API. It has methods that allow you, so let me actually show them over here, to compose multiple asyncs. Async bin, yes. And the trick over here is that Computable Filter requires its own threads to execute. And as you probably know, creating your own threads on a JavaEE environment is not really safe. But you definitely can inject the thread pool from the server or from a vendor using this manager executed service. And with the resource annotation, it will give you a pool of threads over here, and you can use the threads of the server right away, so you don't have to create your own. So that means that you can call Computable Future supply async, and then you pass in the executor over here. So you have the threads over there that you're going to use. And here you can pass in a supplier, which basically is a function that's going to execute whatever code you want. So in this particular sample, I'm just saying I have this method here called long execution, which is just going to do like a sleep for some time, and then it's going to return the amount of time that slept. The interesting thing, as I was saying about the Computable Future, is that then you can compose and chain together other methods. So let's just say you call the supply sync, you pass in the sync, and then you can call again, then apply a sync. So basically it means that this async call that I'm calling here on this then apply sync is only going to get called when the result of supply sync is done. And I mean, you can definitely keep chaining these together. So call another then apply sync, and you can pass in another function over here do something with what these other methods return. And there is a huge amount of methods here on Computable Future. So we have then apply asyncs and or accept either async. So basically, you can basically call two asyncs and accept either of them, which one completes first. You can handle asyncs. I mean, run after, run both. So there is a lot of methods over here. I'm not going to go on all of them, but definitely is a very interesting API. And after after you're happy with all the calls that you have done asynchronously, you can call then accept, and on then accept you can just pass in the consumer. And in this case, you call resume method on the async response from the JAX-RS implementation, and basically it's just going to resume the call and it's going to return whatever I've done over here. So I believe I have a sample test for these over here. Let's see if this one works. So basically what I'm doing over here, just creating a client and calling that client directly with my web client. So let's run this. This is going to take probably a little bit longer because so now server is running. So actually the sync call is running, but it's doing a thread slip. Yeah.
While it's loading, we have 4 questions to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The first one is, what the future of the JavaEE as Oracle left this to Eclipse Foundation?
Oh, so I think that it's a definitely very good question. I've done my question myself when I see about that, and I believe that actually we don't have to be scared of what's going to happen. I believe that it's going to make JavaEE its future is going to be more bright because as we did before with the JCP and Oracle leaving mostly of other specs, JavaEE was very how to say this. So it was, I won't say like delayed, but basically it was running at the speed that Oracle was able to leave it, and basically it was only was only allowed to evolve with as many resources that Oracle could give to it. But with the move to Eclipse and with the chance to other organizations to join in and help with the EE efforts, for instance, Tommy Tribe, the company that I represent, is heavily involved into that. Other companies like IBM, Red Hat, Payara, which represent other vendors, are also involved into that. Can definitely help out by giving more resources to the EE efforts. So we can definitely do much more work and can definitely evolve things faster. So I believe that in the end, it's going to be better for JavaEE to, which basically is not going to be called JavaEE now. That's been given to the Eclipse Foundation, but that's another story. But I definitely believe that's going to be better, since now we have all these companies that are going to be able to give more resources into it and can be developed in a more open environment, so it can evolve much faster. I mean, and Oracle didn't really give up on E. So Oracle is still part of all this initiative. It's just now part of, instead of being the lead, he's now giving the chance to other people to lead. So I think it's a good thing.
Okay, nice. We have more 3 questions.
Yeah.
Okay, can I go ahead? Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm a newcomer to Java world. What should I learn? JavaEE, Spring, Oracle FN, What else?
Okay, so that's definitely a question that I get asked a lot as well. So if you're newcomer to Java, definitely start with with the foundations of Java and start looking into some JavaEE stuff. So some of the things that I was showing over here about that definitely changed the language to something better. All this functional programming paradigm about lambdas, streams, and collections should definitely be learned. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what's the background of the person asked out those questions, but for all Java developers, it was like a very big change. So other developers that are most used to the functional programming style, there's not that a big of a change at all, but definitely have to start looking into all of those things. And now regarding on the enterprise level, if you're talking about EE and Spring, I mean, I think the Spring has done a terrific job evolving their platform. EE as well. EE aims to be standard, so aims to you have to write your APIs, and then you can run them on any server like Glassfish, Tommy, Wildfly, WebSphere. And well, Spring, you can also do that by running with all their libraries. I don't believe that they are mutually exclusive. I definitely have used them both at the same time with great success. I usually tell people to start looking some of the stuff because since those are standard and usually easy to understand the principles and the foundations, and then definitely have a look into the Spring to see some of the more advanced stuff that they have done, which definitely they have very, very good things over there.
Okay, the last one is a newcomer also.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I expect for the future of the Java E or E4J?
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can expect that the specs are going to keep evolving. So now there is like this transition period. It's going to take some time, but there's been some work already into place to keep moving things forward. I'll definitely tell you to look into another initiative called the micro profile. So micro profile is another initiative that's also led or also the same companies that are involved with EE are also involved with micro profile. And micro profile tends to be a specification and requirements for an implementation for a microservice architecture platform. So it includes stuff to do configuration for environments, to do security with JOTs and JAX-RS, has a REST client, open tracing, open APIs, open tracing to trace all the JAX-RS calls that you do on your microservices, open API so you can document your JAX-RS. So, and I'm talking about this because a lot of work has been done there over the last year and a half. So we have all these new specs that come in, and they can definitely be part of the EE at some point. But we have to realize that EE is something that it's something that's standard. It's something that we want to be stable enough so people don't have to relearn stuff every other year, and they can rely on what's over there. And since all these microservices architectures and these microservices requirements, they're still something rather new. There's still lots of discussion on what's the best way to do stuff. These are coming into something separate called the micro profile. But I believe that when things become a little more standard, they may actually move into the EE world. But anyway, those are not exclusive. You can definitely use EE with micro profile at the same time. So And maybe in the future we have something called EE Micro, which is just like a very small subset of all the things that you require to build microservices. So I'm guessing that, as I was saying before, the future for EE, I think it's brighter. All these companies are involved to make EE better, and they are involved on other initiatives that can make EE better as well. So I won't be too concerned about the future of EE, because I think that it's gonna be better. And actually, let me just add one more thing, which is with all of this thing being more open and with all this enthusiasm that's happening, we might definitely start seeing other vendors joining in. So nothing stopping now Amazon or Google, for instance, to start implementing those specs and start giving away those implementations on their cloud-based platforms. So this is just speculation. I'm not sure if they're gonna do it or not. I don't have any indication on that, but definitely something possible that they might be doing in the future.
Thank you, Roberto. That's our question for a while.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we have like 2 minutes left, right? So don't have much time.
Oh, can take as much time you want.
Yeah, well,
Don't worry.
I don't want to take in a lot of time of our audience, but yeah. So let's keep going with a few more things. Yeah, done with Chapter. So we're showing here the sync stuff. So very quickly, a couple of very quick things. So for JAX-B, JAX-B, you can also do mappings for local date, local date time. The same thing we have done with JPA and converters. So a little bit trickier, well, not trickier, but when you have in your JAX-B entity, for instance, this schedule, you have to map these with an annotation called XML Java type adapter, and then you implement these local date time adapter. So every time you want to convert a local date to local date time, you have to annotate these with this adapter. So it's not automatic like you have on JPA. And then this adapter is very similar to the converter. So you extend XML adapter, which takes in so basically how you want to marshal or marshal the object. So in this case, you'll just do for marshaling, you pick up local date. You can format it to an ISO date. So you can call format with a couple of formatting patterns that are over there. So there are a lot of formatting patterns over here that you can use. So you did like ISO date, ISO offset date. So they're already out there on the spec. So actually, if I show them over here, it's probably easier. And like ISO date time, basic ISO date, ISO instance. So there's a lot of over there. And for Marshall, that's the same thing. So you pick up the string and then you can call local date parse. And of course, you have to remember that you have to parse them using the same format pattern that you have. And basically, this allows you to marshal local dates with XML using those adapters and those annotations. So same thing for date time. So it just changes the pattern over here and the object, of course, and zone at that time is a little bit trickier. You have to do like tell which time zone you're going to use, but that's it. Okay, a couple of more extra things. Let's see. Let's look into these extras. I mean, this is just like a very, very simple use case, but definitely helped me out a couple of things. So we have this enum over here, and we have like these values, default, value 1, value A, value B. And sometimes you have to map string values into enums and the opposite. So it's a mess. Basically, what I do is I implement these new methods on my enum using a stream and using filters and optionals. So basically, I'll just do a stream of all the values of my enum. So if you call the enum values, basically that's the array of all the values that are over here. So I just stream them. I filter them out with the value that I want to map. So basically, if I get the default over here, I can basically, this is the string default over here. So basically, I'm going to filter them by the description. I'm going to try to find the first one. And if I don't have a first one, so actually this find first, because there might not be a first if the filter doesn't return any results, so this returns an optional. Then I can say, if I don't find any with that description, I can just return a default, and that's it. So it's just a convenient way to use to map string enums using the new Java 8 stuff. Okay, so we look into JPA, JaxRS, JaxB, some little bit of the extras. Do not just only look into timer and WebSocket. Let's start with timer. I like to show timer over here because there's a very interesting sample over here. So timer, you can actually use a little trick over here to pass in a method reference to execute a timer. So when you want to execute a timer, you have to inject a resource timer service, and then you have to say timer service, create calendar timer. You pass in a schedule expression to indicate the hour, minute, second, whatever. And then you pass in here a timer config. And this timer config, so if I take this out and pass in this timer config over here, it's actually taking a serializable. And this serializable is something that we can use to execute the timer, which is very interesting. So now what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to pass in this method reference called wakeup, which is this method over here. And notice that if I take, so you might not be familiar with this multicast thing for this method. So basically, I'm passing in a method reference, and then I'm multicasting it to a serializable and a runnable. So usually people are just used to see things like this, but you can also do multicasts like that. And in here, so these wakeup methods, so if I pass in this wakeup, I mean, this of course gonna tell me, okay, this is not a functional interface, so I'm not gonna accept that, and definitely not serializable. So I have to cast this to serializable first. And again, if I have only this cast, it's just gonna tell me, okay, serializable is not a functional interface. I cannot cast that to it. But runnable is, and the wakeup method is definitely runnable. So I can say, put the runnable over here, and now it will accept my call. And basically what this does is it's going to pass this serializable to the timer config, and then it's going to execute it, and then it's going to execute this method on this schedule expression. So that's like a convenient way to like pass in method references and then use multicast to execute the timer. If you're not doing it that way, then usually you'll have to do it like the hard way, which is you have to create this calendar timer, you pass in whatever over there, and then there is this get info, you pass in the handle, get the timer. Well, basically you have to call in a couple of methods over there to pass in what you want to execute. So just like a convenient way to combine all these APIs and do it quickly. Now now for WebSockets, I have here a sample where just to show a couple of the new methods introduced with collection enhancement. So in here, this is just a chat WebSocket. So we implement like 4 methods on open, on close, on message, or 3 methods, I guess. So it's trying to make like a chat. So every time I have create a session and I have to join a channel, so basically passing the path parameter to the channel I want to join, kind of like IRC. So I go to my channels, I grab the channel that I want to join, I grab all the sessions that are on that channel, and then but remember, like, sessions might not be initialized yet, so if the sessions are not initialized yet, I have to initialize them with create like a new concurrent hash map. And then after that, then I can put a new hash map associated to that channel for the session. So basically an empty session list. And then I can add myself to that channel. So basically this will mean the first person joining to the channel. I have to initialize that. Then I add the session to my sessions over there. Now this will be the old way that you will write stuff. Now the new way, you have a couple of methods on the collections that you can use to improve this a little bit. So you can call, for instance, something like Computable Absent. And Computable Absent, what's going to do is you're going to pass in again the key. But you can pass in a function that's going to be executed if there is no value over there. So that will mean that Computable Absent is going to call concurrent hash map new key set, and it's going to associate it to the channel if there's nothing over there. And so basically that means that I can call channels Computable Absent, pass in the initialization of the hash map or the concurrent hash map for the sessions for that channel, and then call add session and add my session over there. So basically, these 2 lines of code are equivalent to writing all of this. So the same for close. So close is when I leave a channel. So again, I go to my channels, grab all the sessions, and then I iterate I go to see if the sessions are over there and remove them. Or if not, I'll just throw a legal state exception. In here, I can just do an optional of the channel. So I might get sessions or not. If I don't get anything, I can just say throw an illegal state exception. But if I get something, I can just call remove on that, and that's it. So this will be the old way to write stuff, and this will be a new way to write stuff. Finally, for instance, when I'm sending a message to a channel, this will be the old way. So I'm sending a message to a particular channel, so I have to go from the channels. I have to grab the channel that I'm in. I grab all the sessions that are on that channel, check them for null. Then for each session, I check if it's open, and I don't want to send the same message to me, so I want to send the message to the other sessions. So I can call on a sync remote, send text, blah, blah, blah. Now a new way will be I can call a get or default. So basically, this will try to grab me a channel from the channels list. Or if it doesn't find one, it can return me an empty set. So it might look weird that I'm returning an empty set if I don't get anything, but basically just a trick over here, because then I can chain methods, and if I call stream on an empty set, then basically nothing, doesn't matter when I'm going to execute over here. So actually nothing here is going to get executed. But if I have something, then I'm going to filter them by sessions that are open, filter them again by sessions that is not the current session. And then for each of them, I'll call the async remote, and then I'm going to send the text and send the message. So again, a couple of other improvements that were done. So get or default, get the stream, and then for each. So if you look into some of the new things that we're introducing, you have like get or defaults. Actually, let me do them right here. So you have like get or default. You have for each, you have computive absent, computive present. So you can actually pass a function or a B function if the value is already there. You have for each entry, for each key, for each value, the get or default, and again, put if absent as well. So you have all these new methods that were introduced on the collections that you can use to your advantage and definitely improve code that's written like that to code that's written like this. So I do have a few other samples, but I guess that I went through all the most interesting ones. So I'll leave you a challenge. So I have a couple of other samples for batch, concurrency, and validation. So have a look into them, into my GitHub project. See what the improvements are over there. You can try to run them. And please let me know if you find these interesting and useful, and I'll be happy to help you out with anything else that you require. So I don't want to take more time since we already passed the hour. But I am definitely, I'm definitely.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I can answer any more questions if you have any more. So.
Yeah, there is one more. Is then date to the next version of JavaEE?
Sorry, what? Oh, release date. So I don't believe, I'm not exactly sure. I don't believe there are any release dates just yet. So with all this move from Oracle to the Eclipse Foundation, there is a lot of things being discussed. And definitely there's going to be, so the plan is to have a EE or EE4J version 1.0 that's going to be the same as EE8. So those are going to be equivalent, just to mark the entry point for E4J. And basically, the new release will be after the E4J 1.0, which I'm not sure what version is going to be. Might be 1.1, 2.0, but I'm not aware of any dates for that version. Maybe Octavio may well know. But I'll give you this other challenge. So EE4J project is a very open project right now. So you go to the Eclipse project, look for E4J, sign up for the mailing list, and all the information regarding E4J goes around on the mailing list. So definitely if there are any release dates for the next version, they're going to be posted over there. Octavio, okay. I don't believe there are any release dates, right?
Yeah, unfortunately not. And that's all. Roberto, thanks again for your time. It was really nice and my pleasure.
Yeah, it was my pleasure to be here. So thank you so much for having me and inviting me again.
And guys, thanks for your time. See you soon. The next So Java Be Talking. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.